Thank you to all the listeners of episode 1 of Beyond Hockey with Kurt Lovett. On today's episode, we have Hockeyroos Kate Jenner. Kate discusses her journey from growing up in Tamworth to attending Commonwealth Games, World Cups and Olympics. Kate has played 127 games for Australia, has gold medal at the Glasgow Commonwealth Games, and also has a silver medal from the 2014 World Cup. Kate's journey is no ordinary one, as you'll hear why. She had a break from the high-performance environment, and why it wasn't as simple as it sounds to go back into that environment when offered the chance in 2019. Kate discusses the support she had from her family throughout her journey, as well as the most influential coaches she's had along the way. I also found some of Kate's answers quite strange to our random questions segment at the end, but who am I to judge? Hope you enjoy. Welcome, listeners, to the second episode of Beyond Hockey, and welcome to Kate Jenner.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Beautiful. Now, Kate, I'm going to start off before we get into anything with a few quick-fire, bit of rapid questions for you, just to get the podcast going. Best player you've played with and against?
Best player with, I'd probably have to go with Casey. I think her versatility in positions that she can play, and then also, starting so young and being able to continually improve on her game to stay at the top. I think, that's something to admire. Against, you probably can't go past Amar. Most people, will finish their career maybe tackling her once. She's probably one of those very few female athletes that could probably give it a red hot crack in the men's game. So, you can't go past Amar.
Beautiful. Best coach you've ever had?
I've probably got two. So my first one, probably Greg Dorwin, back from Tamworth. So I guess coming up in Tamworth, he was a hard coach, but also, caring about the athlete. So wanted the athletes to do the best, and, it'd encourage you to push yourself. And I think that, when I moved on further to become a coach, he was someone I kind of looked up to. And then the other one would be Trini Powell. Probably goes without saying, but I think I first was coached by Trini when I was in the junior Australian setup, and then now back at NSWIS. She's got a heap of experience, so she's able to pass on a lot.
Some handy coaches there for sure. This is my favourite question. Best spray you've ever received from a coach or a player? You don't have to say the coach's name, that's okay, but I'd love to hear a spray.
I actually don't know. I probably do more laugh at those things later, or try not to laugh, because I'm like, settle down, it's not that serious. Like, we're losing a game, it's fine. Yeah. World will keep on spinning, but there's no memorable ones.
Damn it, that's all right. Don't have to think too hard about it. And favourite hockey moment in general?
I think anytime, my family's been in the crowd and you're standing, singing the national anthem, and it doesn't matter how big the crowd is. I think, any moment like that, and then you're able to spot your parents. There could be a million people there, and, the people you're able to see are your family, no matter where they're standing. Even if they're behind you, you know exactly where they are. Yeah,
you spot that out before as you walk on the field and start your warm-up, don't you?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to swing back now. So basically a little breakdown for everyone listening. We're going to touch on Kate's kind of childhood and upbringing around the hockey and why she stuck at it, her pathway up to where she is now, and obviously a bit of anything, touch on a bit of training and I guess some injuries if there was any in Kate's career. So let's swing right back to when you were young. And Kate, grew up in Mudgee, from what I understand, or born in Mudgee, and guess where'd you move to and how did that kind of come about, and how'd you get into hockey from such a country area?
Yeah, so I was born in Mudgee. I think we were actually living in Goulburn at the time. So we moved a lot with Dad's work. Born in Mudgee. I think we were living in Goulburn, and then we moved to Orange. And then from Orange, when I was 6, we moved to Tamworth. And I obviously didn't leave until I was 18. But my parents still lived there, and my brother's there with his little family now as well. So definitely consider Tamworth home, even though I was born elsewhere. Getting into hockey, I guess yeah, when I was younger, played outside all the time, just loved being active. And then when I was in year one, so my second year in Tamworth, we had a school team. One of my friends' mothers was coaching, and they were down a player, so asked me to come along. And I guess I loved the first game, and then just kept on coming back. It was probably back in those days you got the red frogs after each game, so that probably keeps you kind of going.
The
as well.
incentives for kids are always good, aren't they?
Yeah. So I guess over the years I played hockey, basketball, golf, swimming, softball, touch, cricket, everything under the sun pretty much. And then as I got older, and then my brother and sister also playing various sports, we kind of had to cut down as we grew up. And then hockey's the one I enjoyed the most. I don't know why, but I guess I had friends in the sport, enjoyed playing it, enjoyed training. So it's the one that has stayed in my life.
Stuck with it. Yeah, no, it's good because again we had Kurt Lovett on our last episode, and he said similar things. And I imagine it's similar to yourself. You would have been pretty good at most sports you tried and played. And hockey was the one he said he stuck with because of the people in it. He said that the people that he dealt with were caring about. As you said with one of your favourite coaches, Greg, he cared about the athlete and yourself, but he actually pushed you as well. So it's good to hear. How do you think, I guess, growing up in Tamworth and Tamworth being renowned pretty much for actually having a good hockey upbringing and coaches and players coming from the area, do you reckon that affected your pathway and helped you along?
I guess I didn't really know that hockey was at the Olympics until Sydney, when they made the gold medal match, and I was like, oh, that's the sport I play. So I had no kind of idea, and then I didn't really know the rich history in hockey that Tamworth had either. It wasn't probably until when the Michael York Kinsmall Shield kind of came in that I was starting to look back and see the people that had played for Australia beforehand, and I guess meeting people as well. When I first played juniors, I met Jed, who I can't remember his last name. Oh, Jeremy Davey. There we go. Jeremy Davey. And he's like, oh, you're from Tamworth. And I was like, oh, yeah. And he's like, do you know Pud? And I was like, oh, yeah, he coached me in club for the last 2 years. And he goes, that's my brother. And I was like, oh, so you're from Tamworth? He goes, yep. And then, I met Des King, and he was like, oh, I'm from Tamworth. And, oh, my mum works here. And I'm like, oh, I know that lady. So, I guess the connections kind of came in, and, Matt Smith as well. He was our N-Swiss careers guy. So, met him, and then realised, oh, we're from Tamworth too. Oh, you're that guy that's up on the wall. So then I guess I learnt the history a bit later, but the way they've been able to progress, athletes out of Tamworth is, exceptional. And I think it's going to keep going with the new facilities out there, or I hope it does anyway.
Yeah, no, as you said, it's a nice rich history, but it's such a small world sometimes when you think of things like this, isn't it? And you know where you grew up, and you're like, oh, that person's from there as well. Interesting. You mentioned your parents before. How did they, I guess, affected parents and your siblings? How have they affected your journey? I guess the parents have been known, especially in country areas. Travel is few and far between. You go 5 minutes down the road to hockey, or you go 2.5 hours to play a game. So it's one or the other. How have they affected, I guess, or helped you?
Yeah, I guess they didn't really know hockey, so they'd drop me off, I'd train, they'd pick me up, they'd say, how was that? And I'd say, good. And then we just carry on with life. So I guess I never really had the pushy parents or anything like that. They were quite laid back. They were more,
Yeah. So how have your parents affected the journey, and I guess how they helped you come along?
Yeah, so I guess with my parents, they weren't really hockey parents at all. We're not a hockey family. So for me, in that sense, it was really easy. They'd drop me off at hockey, I'd train or play, and, I'd jump back into the car, and they'd say, how was that? I'd say, good. And then, the next question that followed was normally like, have you done your homework? What do you need to do for school? Stuff like that. So I guess in that sense, it was easy for me, and they were just really supportive. And then I guess there's a lot of trips, I guess, once you start down the pathway, like my first state team was under 15s, and we had to train in Sydney. So, you know, your parents go from full-time work during the week, get home Friday afternoon, they're obviously exhausted, and then have to deal with 3 kids, wake up early Saturday morning, you know, put us in the car and drive down to Sydney. We finish Sunday, drive back, and then they're back into full-time work again. So I guess now that I've done a lot of driving, I understand, you know, how hard that is and, you know, kind of the choices they had to make. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I've had, supportive parents the whole way.
Back at that stage as well, the drive to Sydney wasn't like it is now. It wasn't a 4.5 hour trip straight down. It was about a 6 hour trip, and it was a nightmare of a trip back in those days, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very windy roads. Yeah, I was often car sick and then turning up for trials or training. So, yeah, it wasn't a nice experience for anyone. But yeah, I guess now there's a lot more flexibility in where trials are held and stuff like that. So you get to see a bit more of the state. So yeah,
it's a good experience there. You mentioned your first state team being under 15s. Tell us a bit about your pathway. Were you one of the kids kind of growing up and making all the teams, or would you actually, you know, fighting your way into teams? You know, and because a lot of the people are kind of common names in teams, and they grow up to be in the Australian teams and that. But there's other ones that actually grind their way through it. What type of athlete, I guess, were you in that aspect?
Yeah, I didn't make state team until top age 15s. So they kind of had 13s coming in when I was around, but 15s was my first experience being away. And then I think I missed out when I was bottom age 18s, but then made it the next 2 years. So it definitely wasn't, you know, I made everything along the way. I think my first year trying out for hiatus, I didn't get in. So yeah, you definitely miss out on things along the way, but there's heaps of hockey around if you don't make those teams, so it's not like you're not playing. It is obviously a lot of fun, you know, going away to national championships and state championships. So I definitely wanted to make the team, but yeah, if it didn't happen, I guess I didn't really know the process either. I'd kind of turn up and they'd be like, "Oh, come to this trial," so I'd go, and if I got in, I got in. If I didn't, I mean, it wasn't the end of the world, and you know, my parents knew no better either. They were like, "Oh well, it doesn't matter. I didn't." Go back home. Let's do something.
Go back to school on Monday.
Yeah, exactly. So I wasn't really hung up on it, and neither were my parents.
Yeah, I think we'll touch on a little bit later, I guess, the setbacks and how to deal with them, because obviously at that age you don't think much about it. You're either really upset and you didn't make a team because your friends made it, or and then you just go on with life. But as you get a bit older, it goes on to, you know, missing the Australian team for an Olympic Games, for example, or something like that, where it actually gets a bit more serious. So we'll touch on that a bit later. I guess, when was your first experience at that really high performance level? You know, you made your state teams, you went through, and when did you really kind of go, actually, this could be, you know, I could see myself playing for the Hockeyroos?
Yeah, so when I was 19 was my first, I was in under 21s that year for New South Wales. And then, got picked in the Junior World Cup squad. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. And it was kind of like, we actually lost to Tassie in that final, 1-0. So I think it was their first win in forever. So you were kind of like, oh, happy for them, but then at the same time you lost. So yeah.
Can't be happy for Tassie winning something. Come on.
Oh, it had been forever. It was a bit of like a good feel story. So happy for them, but disappointed that we lost. And then received an email, and I was like, what is this? Like, I didn't even know it was a thing. Like, there were junior stuff happening forever, and I kind of just got selected in that. And then it was like, the Junior World Cup was later in that year or early the next year. So, went away for the first time overseas, so to Japan. So I had to get a passport.
Learn a bit of language.
International airport. I was terrible at that. I had no idea. So that was a new experience, and I think especially going to a country where there's no English. So you go to a restaurant, you're trying to order something, and luckily there's picture menu, so you can point at something, but you have no idea what's really in it or what you're ordering. So, and
you're probably at that age where you don't really experiment with a lot of food either. You're sticking to your normals, and you would have had no clue what was on this menu. You just pointed at something that looks like chicken.
Yeah. I was like, where's some chicken, some pasta, and some mashed potato? But that was different experience, and we played a university team over there as part of our trials. And then, from that selected in, the Junior World Cup team. And then went to, that was in Boston. So, going over there, I guess that was a bit of a long haul flight over to Boston, whereas to Japan, it was, a few hours and you're there. Whereas, to Boston. So, I learned about jet lag. And, I guess life in each country is different, and the way, obviously the customs and everything in Japan is different to America. And we're staying at a college base, so you go into a food hall, which, they'd eat from, and it's a bit like a mini kind of Com Games, kind of Olympic Village setup, where, you go into your food hall and you go around to your stations and pick your food and all of that. So, that was a cool experience.
Yeah, it sounds like a really good experience at a young age, especially.
Yeah, their colleges over there are crazy for sport. So, that was a bit eye-opening.
Yeah, good. Now we're moving, I guess, now you've touched your Junior World Cup stage. Made your debut. We'll move on to your Hockeyroos kind of experience. You made your debut in 2010, I believe. Was that your first year in the squad as well, 2010?
Yeah, yep. So that was after my first year in AHL.
Yep.
So, and it was the same thing. Like, I didn't really know that by playing AHL, that was kind of like your trials for the squad, and I was just oblivious to everything. Like, I just, liked playing hockey, and whatever happened kind of happened. So, and it was actually the next day they sent the email out with the squad, which I'd been announced in, and we got it at the airport. And I kind of looked at it, and I was like, what the hell? And then I kind of just put it away, because I was like, oh, maybe that's not meant for me. Like, I shouldn't be
Wrong
reading
person.
that. And then we were still at the airport, and then some of the other older girls, like, Fiona Johnson, Kate Hollywood, those types were still around. And I remember I was super hungover. So we were super hungover. It was the last, our last night out, all of that. And then they came up and they're like, congratulations, you're in the squad and this and that. And I was like, what does this mean? I had no idea. And I was probably too hungover to actually process everything. So it wasn't until I got home and I read it, and then my parents are calling, because, they'd heard through the grapevine, obviously at Tamworth, my sister was playing, so people would come up to them and they're ringing me saying, why didn't you tell me? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what it means.
It's the last thing on my mind. I just want some water and some Gatorade at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. So, but then in the next few days, we kind of, sorted it out and worked through it. And, I was actually selected to go on just a tour over to Europe. So, went on that, and then came back, selected in the World Cup team. Went to that, then Com Games. So it was kind of a bit of a whirlwind at the start, and I didn't quite understand everything that happened. And then, selected the following year into the squad as well. So then moved over to Perth. But, I didn't really, have much understanding of anything that was happening. It kind of all just got dumped on me. Yeah.
Because that was kind of leading into my next kind of couple of questions about, I guess, your mental state and your routines. Because I watched a video there from one of your teammates at the moment in the Hockeyroos, and they're talking about how you're a quiet personality off the field, and then as soon as you hit that white line, just nothing gets past you. So I guess you're so relaxed at the moment. You talk about how things just go by and you didn't really realise, you didn't really push for it. You just trained hard and went and played hockey because you loved it. Does that still flow over, I guess? And I guess, does it affect you much now? You're so relaxed, and then as soon as you hit that hockey field, is there something that triggers you to know that there's a contest on right now?
Yeah, I think I think it's just because I'm competitive. It doesn't matter what game it is. I want to be able to, master the skill to be able to do it, or, I get angry in golf if I, miss a shot. And I rarely play golf, but I just want to, be able to do something and learn something.
You hate sucking at something. So, you just hate not being good at it.
Yeah. So, it's kind of like that with hockey. I just like being competitive, and I guess as you're growing up, you have to learn kind of how to be competitive and how far is too competitive, where, you're being a bit of a dick and you're being ungrateful and unsportsmanlike and all of that. So you've got to learn where those boundaries are and, the good level of competitive.
I'm sure the boundaries would have been pushed with your siblings, I'm guessing. That usually comes into play, and you had arguments with the siblings.
Yeah, definitely. And it often wasn't with hockey in the backyard. It was other sports like, tackle football, which we weren't meant to be playing. And
Yep. No, I can completely imagine the go on there.
Yeah.
It's good. So basically, the part I want to get the mental side of things for you, I guess, is throughout the time you've gone into the system at 2010, into the Hockeyroos system, and now I guess there's a 10-year gap, and we'll touch on you had a little break in about 5 years in about 2015 a bit later, but how's that kind of changed? I guess you're going into the system in 2010. Quite a young age, mentally going. You'd have to go over to Perth. You're playing it. It's all whirlwind as you described it. How did you deal with that mentally? Were you nervous? Were you anxious about it all, or how did you actually cope with it all?
I think like at the start, I was just like, oh yeah, this is great. I'm just playing hockey, all of that. Like I didn't really have much of a routine. And then I think when I started getting injuries and things like that, then it's kind of like how are you, like, what's your diet like? What's this like? Are you recovering properly? That, and I'm like, I'm just living. Like,
yeah.
I don't worry about all that. So then, I guess off the field, I had to become, more disciplined, and, I went a year without eating takeaway as, a little challenge for myself to, turn my eating around.
Were you a big takeaway eater in the first place?
I think I got lazy, and I think it's, when you move out of home, because with, like, I guess your parents are probably similar, but with mine, we kind of, we ate very healthy, your veggies, your meat, your this, your that. And then when I got out of home, I was like, I'm going to have Cocoa Pops for breakfast. I'm going to have all the things I was never allowed.
Treat yourself.
Yeah, treat myself. And then I think that just got out of hand. And then when I started getting injured, I was like, oh, mum and dad were right. That's the way I should be eating. So I guess it wasn't a hard adjustment at all. But yeah, just being more disciplined with, recovery, eating, how I, would set goals going into training. Whereas before I just wouldn't even think about, I just turn up and play because, it was fun and all of that. So that was kind of, how I kind of went into it mentally, and I guess changed as well as we went on. And then, you've touched on, I had a break in about 2015. So I got dropped at that stage, and I think I'd probably gone too far with like my planning and this and that, and mentally it was like, I have to do this and this and this and this, and it got away from hockey being fun.
Was that your competitive edge kind of coming in, and you wanting to do so well and try to plan everything out step by step?
Yeah, and I think it was, just wanting to be better and better and better. And it was like, well, what's the point of being, so focused on that when you're not having fun anymore? Because then you won't be better. Yep. So it was a little bit of, I guess a balance in that I needed to learn. And I think also it was just a build up of being away from home for so long. Like, to go home from Perth, like back to Tamworth, it's 2 flights, it's a whole day of travel, it's this, it's that, I guess it was just the distance, because I'm quite a homebody and, very family orientated. So, to be missing that, I think, it went away from being fun, and it was like, oh, this is so serious. And so, I wasn't really, enjoying hockey at that stage.
Because at that stage, you would have been in Perth for maybe 5 years or something close to that, and you went to the London Olympics, you went to Netherlands, Com Games. You had a lot on in that time. World Cups in there as well, I'm sure. So you had a lot on in that time, and it was just, as I said, it sounded just like a build up of it, and the higher you got and the more competitive you wanted to be, it kind of caved in a little bit on that mental side of things.
Yeah, like I think I kind of forgot the reason I was playing. And when you start, hating something you're doing, it builds on you really quickly, and then you can't control it. So, I think it was just, and then getting back into playing hockey at that level when, I found out that it was the last AHL we were going to have before we moved to the new Hockey One. I was like, oh, it'd be really fun to play in that again. And, I knew all the people that were, potentially going to be playing that I grew up playing with, like your Tamsin and those types of players. So yeah, I was really excited then to play hockey again. So again, I guess that kind of started back into, I just wanted to play hockey for New South Wales. It wasn't about, getting back to where I am now.
You just wanted to get back to your roots and having that
yeah.
enjoyment back in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
When you were a bit younger there over in Perth and you first went over there, I guess, was there anyone you did look up to a bit or mentor a little bit and kind of took a lot out of? As you said, being a young person going over, as you said, you were pretty freewheeling, just enjoying it. Was there someone you actually looked up to and said, actually, that they've got some routines there, they're quite, process driven or something along those lines?
I don't think I looked up to anyone in that sense, but one person I looked up to in being, competitive, a bit hard-nosed in their approach, but then also, a good person just to chat to and I guess bring you back to real life was Kobe McGurk. So she's a country kid as well. So I think from that sense, and she wasn't scared to tell you exactly how it is. Like, you passed that ball there, it should have gone there. Like, if you're in trouble, I'm here, you pass the ball to me. So she was one of those that was there for a little while. It would have been great if she was around, for longer. But she retired. Another one was Nicole Arrell. So she was, one of the, I think she was probably the oldest when I first debuted and playing a defender. And she was great in guiding me around the pitch and, just, I guess, calming me down before a match. Like, don't worry about this or that. And, I'll tell you exactly where to be on the field and that kind of thing. So I guess, those two are kind of, reassuring in that defensive position. But then, they're also really two really good people as well.
Yeah, good. Let's go back to, you touched on, you kind of got a few injuries as you went into that over in Perth, into that system there. Were they kind of your first major injuries that set you back for, I guess, a period of time? And how it was, again, that mental struggle of trying to get over that injury and get back into it, being such a young age and kind of eager to get out there and play for Australia?
Yeah, well, I guess my first few injuries were more like just muscle related. So quads, hamstrings, stuff like that. A few ankle rolls here and there, like kind of normal, I guess, hockey injuries, but also quite preventable. And that's where it all kind of came back to my nutrition and, preparing my body properly for playing, at that high level. I guess some of the injuries that probably threw me the most, I fractured my foot at one stage and it was in an international match. And I kind of thought, oh, that hurts. I kind of landed wrong. Played a few more matches until I realised actually how bad it was. And then, it was probably a good 6 months out. When you get those longer term injuries where, you have to tick a lot of boxes to come back, they're probably the ones that wear you down the most. And because you can't play through that either, where, I had, fractured thumbs and fingers and stuff like that. And, you kind of pop them in a splint and keep playing. So, those ones, they're harder mentally to play through because you're like, I'm in pain, like I'm hurting, but, physically fine to play.
Yep.
Whereas when you're told, you can't play with this, well, you obviously can't play with a fractured foot, you need to run.
Yeah.
They're the ones, I guess, when you're told no, they're the hardest ones to deal with. So, you do have a lot of support around you when you are injured. You get monitored quite closely. So, you are looked after.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of the sports medicine side of things now is really coming about too. So I guess being injured now in 2020 compared to, I guess, 2010, I would imagine there'd be a bit of difference around your recovery phases and how that all is managed as well. But have you been lucky enough to stay pretty injury free from then on, or have you had any other setbacks that have kept you out for a long time?
Since then I've been pretty injury free. Fractured my thumb last year, but could kind of play through that to an extent to, when I was like, oh, I've had enough. Like, I need a break to let this heal. So, that's probably the main one. And then just, little niggles here and there, obviously, because I'm a lot older from when I first started playing. So, yeah, just little niggles, and yeah, I think it's just old age.
Good. Now, let's swing back, I guess. You had your break 2015. You played the last AHL 2018, I think it was. Was it that year,
Yeah,
that the last year that the Arrows won? Um,
yeah.
Talk us through, I guess, for one, you getting back into it for the enjoyment of it. And do you reckon that's one of the reasons it was success? That team that was a part of it seemed quite, they had a lot of fun together. They enjoyed each other's company and I guess led to success. Talk us through about that last AHL. Obviously, people now know that the Hockey One League has been introduced and there's franchises about of the New South Wales Pride, but I guess that was the last year of the New South Wales Arrows. Talk us through, I guess, your time as an Arrow, but more in particular that last winning championship.
Yeah, I guess we went into that knowing, that everyone wanted to play that year. That was kind of in the squad and all of that. So it was a really competitive team. But then we also knew the rich history of the Arrows. So we really wanted to go, I guess out on a high, and we knew we had the team to do it. And the team gelled really well, even though there was, some older players and younger players that were coming through. Yeah, and it was just a really good feeling around the group. Yeah, like we played hockey, we got on off the field. I guess it was just a real team effort. And then you had Trini there, who was our coach, and she's great at motivating a team and all of that stuff. So I guess everything kind of went right for us that year. Whereas the following year, like the Hockeyroos girls, they didn't qualify straight away, so they had to prioritize something else except for Hockey One, and
Injuries left, right, and centre as well.
Injuries, yeah. So there was lots happening. So yeah, the year before everything went perfectly. Yeah, and then the following year, unfortunately, it didn't. But yeah, I guess we can still learn lessons from both of those experiences, and how we can handle it differently next time. But yeah, it's definitely one of the highlights of playing for New South Wales was that last Arrows win.
Now, I want to touch on a bit now that I guess you've got called back into, so after that Hockey One League, you said, after that last AHL, this year you got called back in, so you played for the Pride, got called back into the Hockeyroos squad. This could be a silly question, but was it an easy decision to accept that and go over to and move your life over to Perth again and want to play for the Hockeyroos? Being again, you've been over to Perth for a previous 5 years or so, come back, started a life working, and then get called back into that setup. Was it an easy decision to actually say yes and kind of make that move?
Yeah, not really. I mean, I was in the development squad the year before, and still training the same amount, but also working, and work was more of my priority. So if I had something work related on, I'd do that instead of train and make it up elsewhere. Whereas when it was like, you've kind of got to pick, I guess, work, that I guess that life you've now built in the last 4 years, or whether you put that on hold and go back to Perth with the possible chance you could play at another Olympics. So it was a tough choice. I guess I'm lucky in the sense that work was really good, and said, the job will still be open when you come back, hopefully in August if you want it. Which I was like, yes, definitely, want to stay, working and all of that, and go back to, I guess, normal life as soon as possible. I didn't see in any stage that Perth was going to be long term. I was trying not to count down the days until I could be back, I guess, in Newcastle in my own house. But yeah, at the same time, I was like, I've just got to, with the possible chance of playing in another Olympics, I've got to suck it up for 8 months. So,
yeah, because that's the thing I touched on when I had a chat with Kurt last episode about hockey being the sport where you can't just focus on hockey. You don't get paid enough just to focus on hockey. You actually have to have something outside of hockey. You have to work, and most people actually work full time and train full time, and it's enduring, and it's a tough, as you said, it's tough to actually try and get into that motivation and rhythm of working back to training, and then get the call to say go over to Perth and move your life over there for 8 months, as you said, possibly go to the Olympics. I wouldn't imagine it would be an easy decision just to say yes, where other sports could look at it and go, it's a bit of a joke to say, I had to think about going to potentially play for my country, but it's not that easy, is it?
Yeah, like I think, my decision early on was much easier. Like it was like, oh, I'm picked. This is what I do. I just go. Whereas, yeah, I guess in this stage of my if I go, I have to be, fully committed. I can't have, other things going on where, they can take my, distract me from, the main goal. So it was tough. And especially as you touched on, we're not paid like other sports. So, luckily, I do budget quite well and all of that. So I did a bit of calculations and I was like, yeah, I can afford to, move over there and, keep it. But then it was also tough because I don't just want to focus on hockey either. I still want to keep progressing, my learnings on the job and all of that. So, it was a bit of a challenge, but it didn't quite work out in the end because everything got shut down. But it is what it is.
So you can't complain too much about it at the moment, can we? Now, look, we've gone through your journey. We've gone up and you've reached the top level. Let's go back to a few of the highlights against, Olympics 2012 London. Talk us about, I guess, when you got named in that squad to finally go to the Olympics. I'm assuming as soon as you went to Perth when you were a bit younger, that was one of the goals. Talk us through, I guess, that and how did that get announced and your feelings? And I'm assuming it'll be a quite exciting time to get announced.
Yeah, so we found out by email. So they set a date and, at this time the email will come out. Around the date when it gets selected, we're able to leave Perth, so to go home to be with family or whatever, and you don't know what the situation's going to be. So you're allowed to leave and, I guess be around your support networks. So I was in Tamworth and I didn't know that my parents knew the date it was coming out. So I was like, I'll just go into the garage. I'll just, spin my legs over on the exercise bike and wait for the email to come out. And then we always find out who's in the team earlier than, the press does or anything like that. So, it was kind of told, strictly no one's to know until whatever date. And then I walked out of the garage, like I was on the bike for literally 2 minutes because I knew the timing. And then walked back in and mum and dad are kind of standing in the hallway, like staring at me. And I was like, why are you looking at me? And they're like, so what is it? I was like, I can't tell you. And they were like, you can tell us, we won't tell anyone. And I was like, oh, as if you guys are the worst at keeping secrets like that. Like, you'll ring, nan and pop and, aunties, uncles, this and that. And soon everyone will know. And it'll be, the team will be released from me. It'll come back to me. And then, in the end, I told them, yes, I'm in, don't tell anyone. And I didn't know, but they'd actually planned, booked to come over and go on a bit of a holiday through Europe beforehand. So my sister was at home, and when she found out, she was like, yes, I'm going to Paris. Yes, like she wasn't really excited, I guess, for the Olympics. She was more excited that she was going to
go on a family holiday.
Yeah. And then it turned out, my auntie and uncle and a few cousins as well were going to do the same holiday together. So all of a sudden, all of them are on the phone talking about their holiday, and I was sitting there like, okay, so cool.
They kind of forgot about you. Actually, just got picked in the Olympics. They've just planned their holiday now, so that's kind of got brushed to the side.
Yeah, and then so it went from not telling anyone to what I thought would happen, straight on the phone, telling Nan and Pops and this and that, and so it was exciting. They were excited as well, obviously. But I guess it's kind of how my family is. They're supportive and excited, but then life keeps going on.
Yeah.
We probably cleaned the house afterwards, did some work in the backyard, something like that. So, so it's kind of brings you back down to earth quickly. But they're definitely supportive and proud and all of that stuff.
Now the Olympics that year, obviously in London, not the result that the Hockeyroos are after, coming fifth from memory. Not the result that's after. A couple of years on in the World Cup, second place over in the Netherlands, and then I guess that same year the Com Games won gold. So I guess talk us through for one going into a championship or Olympics, World Cup, whatever it is. it's different for individuals to go to a World Championships because it's got themselves to focus on. But when you've got to build a team around it and try and build a championship team, talk us through, I guess, the preparation for that. And I guess once you're there, do you feel the pressure? Is it outside pressure? Is it internal pressure? How does all that kind of hit home to an athlete in a team environment?
Yeah, I guess with the Olympics in 2012, so we were ranked at that stage, I think it was 7th in the world. So we'd had a bit of a dip. But then outside of that, you always have, the expectation of, when they went, back to back, the Hockeyroos went back to back gold medalists. And so I think from an outside point of view, from the Australian public, they think, Hockeyroos, they're going to win gold. Same as Kookaburras, put your house on it. Whereas it's not that simple. And I think, we haven't had that success in so long. So I think we had to be realistic going in. Obviously, you're not going to turn up if you don't, so we obviously had that goal, but making the semi-finals first off was a goal, and we didn't start off well with losing our first game, which kind of put us on the back foot a little bit. But yeah, I guess in the end we finished 5th, so we finished strongly, 2 places higher than our world ranking. So I guess it wasn't all a failure, but it came down to scoring goals. We were kind of, missed out by 1 goal in making it into the semi-finals. And so I guess it was tough when it kind of came back to that count back and all that. And a few girls that, probably knew that was their last shot at an Olympics. That would have been, just, it's not really something you can prepare for or be ready for. I guess you hear a lot of stories about what it's like, but until you get there and experience it, it's a completely different beast to, what anyone will tell you about it.
And I would have thought it'd be completely different to even to a World Cup or a Com Games as well, which you think could relate. But I think that from what I've heard, again, hearing other people like yourself talk, it's just that next level, and you just can't do anything about it. You've just got to embrace the pressure internally there and just go with it.
Yeah, well, I guess for a World Cup, it's just your team. You stay in a motel, you're very insular. It's, you stick to your group. Whereas, in an Olympic village, there's people from everywhere, all sports, and it's just crazy, non-stop. Like, people might have events late at night. So, people are coming home at midnight. People are leaving at like 3 a.m. in the morning. So it's adjusting, I guess, to all that. You're kind of in a bit like a share house type thing where, you might have 6 people in your apartment. Your single beds are a metre away. There's not much space. It's not luxury, but it's not uncomfortable either. So, and then, eating times, the amount of walking you do, it can be, far more than what you do in normal life. So, there's lots of challenges for sure, but it's a great experience, and you see, all the big sporting stars. Obviously, they don't stay in the village because they're too famous. But it's great to see them and just see the aura around them, I guess.
Yeah. Now we move past the Olympics. As you said, ranked number 7 in the world, so 5th again wasn't a complete failure, as you said. 2 years later, you go on to win a gold at the Commonwealth Games and come 2nd at the World Cup. I'm assuming that's exceeded your expectations of going into both of them. Did you move up the world rankings at that stage in 2014?
Yeah, I think we got up to, it was either 3rd or 2nd in the world. So kind of up around where we are now. We've kind of held since then. But I guess there was a few changes after 2012, a tiny bit of a rebuild, not a lot because there'd been one done 2 years beforehand. But I think it was more, going to 2012, there were a lot of, and myself included, young and inexperienced that were kind of still finding their feet. And then I think by 2014, because we'd had those, 2, 3, 4 years in and around the team, you're starting to, find your feet a little bit more confident in playing and being able to go out and play your natural game. So I think in that year we kind of made that progress and really understood the structures that we were playing and all of that. It kind of took time. And yeah, it was I think everything kind of fell into place. Like in the Com Games final, like, scoring, 7 seconds left. Yeah, like there's a bit of luck involved in that as well. So, everything kind of went our way that year.
Yeah, that's good. And I guess the celebrations, Glasgow, Scotland, I've been there myself. It's not a quiet city. I would have thought the gold medal would have really encouraged you guys to have a few celebratory drinks.
Yeah, no, it's never a quiet city there. So yes, we did enjoy ourselves thoroughly.
Excellent. At least you didn't get a successful email the next day that you had to try and understand and have people in your ear congratulating you. So that's a positive.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Look, moving towards the end now, Kate, I've got a few random questions which you yourself work in Hockey New South Wales would probably know a little bit about, but we like to ask, I guess, people that come into the office that we don't know much about just to get a bit of a feel about them. So no fence sitting is the main rule for this one, okay? So you have to choose one or the other. It's peanut butter, smooth or crunchy, but for Kurt's case, we said anaphylactics, but smooth or crunchy?
Oh, yeah, crunchy.
Crunchy. Tomato sauce or barbecue sauce, fridge or cupboard?
Or barbecue, and I keep one in both.
One in both?
Yeah.
Interesting.
If it's hot food, you put like your pantry barbecue on. If it's, a bit colder, you put cold.
Okay, so you have 2 lots of tomato and barbecue sauce in your place, is that what you're saying?
Yep.
That is very interesting.
Yep.
That is a definition of fence sitting, though. To be fair, you've just hedged your bets, but that's okay. Orange juice, pulp, no pulp.
Oh, not a fan of either, really. I don't really like orange foods, so that just doesn't fit.
Fair enough. We'll just rule that question out. That's fine. That's not even a fence sitter. That's just a complete disregard of it. That's okay.
Yeah, that's just a no.
Chocolate, fridge or cupboard?
Oh, both.
Both. Chocolate's chocolate.
Yeah, chocolate.
That is also fence sitting. That's horrible.
I know. I'd probably go pantry then. Pantry.
There we go. Thank you. Now, the last question I like to ask, and it's just one because it's just an interesting one for me personally. Who's the most famous person you know that would come up and know you by name or nickname? Preferably non-hockey, but if it's a good hockey person.
Yeah, I actually don't know.
You went to school with a famous person, did you?
Oh, well, that doesn't count.
How doesn't it count?
Look, we went to school together. I'd more go like just a random like sports person that you met.
No, so someone that you know that they know you.
Yeah, well, it would have to be Josh Hazelwood. Obviously going to the same school. Yeah, but I'd still go with like Yorkie or Kim Small. I'd keep it hockey.
Yeah, fair enough too. That's right. Kate, privileged to have you on. Again, a shout out to your hockey sponsor to keep you going there, Griffin. They've done a great job of keeping you supplied there. And as we all know, hockey people need to be supported by their sponsors to kind of keep them going and allow them to do their thing. So, Kate, appreciate you coming on and giving up your time.
No worries.